Hello, everyone. I'm Laura Darling. I'm the Vice President of Communications and Spiritual Care for Covia. And today I am here with Jerry Brown, who is our Senior Director of Affordable Housing and newly recovered from COVID-19. So I was hoping to get his insights into that experience and any advice he might have for any of us who are worried about this disease and how it might affect us, and any thoughts that he has about his own experience. So hello, Jerry, how are you feeling?
Hey, Laura. Well, thank you for your interest and concern. I appreciate it. And I'm still working at it. I'm not quite over it yet. It's going to take a while, the doctors say.
Yeah. All right. So when did you first suspect that you had COVID-19?
Well, being in this industry and the concern that I had an understanding of the disease from all I learned from my work at Covia, I didn't really recognize it when I first got sick. On March 12th, I requested to start working remotely at the advice of my Kaiser doctor because I'm at high risk. I have heart disease. I've had 2 heart operations. I have diabetes, which is the main concern. And as a child, I had pneumonia, and I have some scars on my lungs from that episode. So at the advice of friends, because San Francisco, where I live, my main residence, is so dense, my friends were advising that I come to my home in Palm Springs, where I would be able to get out more, be outside, go swimming, and not have to stay in so much. So I did decide to come down to my home here in Palm Springs, May 1st. I drove down. It was a good experience until June 28th. And I got a really bad upset stomach. I thought I probably had food poisoning. And that lasted straight 48 hours, 2 days. And then that Sunday, I felt like you often hear people say, an elephant was sitting on my chest. I could not get my breath. I didn't understand why, but I then knew that that was one of the serious parts of COVID. So I did call Kaiser here, talk to them. I was running a fever. They told me to go to the emergency room of the Desert Regional Medical Center. I went to the emergency room. There were 3 people ahead of me. They moved me ahead of those people, took me straight into the emergency room, put me on oxygen, and gave me the nasal test. And the test was not so bad. It was the long swab. It wasn't comfortable, but it wasn't painful. And the good thing about being in the hospital is I got the results of the test back in 4 hours. So I had to sit in the emergency room for 4 hours waiting on the test. But once I got it, the doctors decided that based on the way my condition at that point, that they thought I could be treated at home. So they told me to go home and take basically Theraflu and aspirin and let them know when the fever went away. But if I had any problems with my breathing, that I should immediately go back to the emergency room. So I did come home. I thought I was doing fine for 7 days, but the next Sunday, the elephant was sitting back on my chest again. And just couldn't breathe hardly at all. So I had a friend take me to the emergency room again. They brought me in. They gave me another COVID test just to make sure. And I was lucky enough, this particular hospital had a floor that was designated for COVID-19 for Riverside County. There were 70 rooms, and all of these rooms are individual rooms that have special air filtering so that it doesn't get into the rooms of the rest of the hospital. And everybody who comes in wears the hazmat suits. I mean, it's really like watching the movie Contagion. It's not real friendly. But I was lucky enough to get the last room that was available that night. So I didn't get into my room until 3 o'clock the next morning. But I did get in there, and I felt so much better once the nurses and the CNAs all came around and started taking care of me. And I thought, well, maybe I'm just going to be here a couple of days. But I ended up being there 10 days.
10 days.
Yeah.
Oh, my goodness. So can you tell us a little bit about the treatments you received and what it was like at the hospital?
Sure. Well, the doctors, and again, the doctors would come to the door. They would come in the morning and in the afternoon, and they would look at me through this little 12-inch by 12-inch window in the door. They would not come in. No doctor ever physically came in and touched me or did anything. Only the nurses did that. And so they always told me from the very beginning that because of my health condition, that my goal every day, and they actually wrote it on a whiteboard in my hospital room. This is the goal for the day: stay out of ICU. And there were 18 ICU rooms, and they were full the whole time I was there. Over that 10 days, 7 people died. So, you know, you would hear that through the nurses, and the medical staff are just that. The doctors were very honest. I had a team of Kaiser doctors. There were 5 of them. There was my doctor who was assigned for my overall health, and there was a cardiologist. There was a infectious disease person. So they were all trying to figure out what to do, and they said, you know, we don't really have a set treatment for this. We don't know. Everybody's different. So what we're going to do is just sort of throw things at you over the next few days to see what works for you. So the first thing, you know, at that point, people have probably heard of remdesivir, which is the main drug that's used. And when they did all of the tests with my body and that drug, I did not match up good for it. So that was not good. Then they were going to try the plasma, and the federal government refused to let me have it. Not sure why, but you had to have the federal government's approval to do that. It was still being tested. So what worked for me were steroids. The problem with the steroids, and the reason that was number 3, is because steroids don't really work well with people who have diabetes. And my diabetes is not real bad. I've had it for 10 years, and it's been under control with a drug, very common drug called metformin. I take a pill in the morning and a pill at night. My sugars always stay between 125 and 150, which is perfect range. But when I started taking the steroids, which made me feel a lot better breathing-wise, my sugar levels went to 700. Not good for my heart. That's the reason I had to stay in the hospital so long. That with that sugar level, I could have had a stroke or kidney problems, that kind of thing. So, and also I had to take an additional blood thinner because you can have blood clots with this stuff. And I already take a blood thinner for my heart operation. So I took another one on top of that. So it's mainly the combination of the drugs. So many people say they lose taste, they weren't hungry. I was hungry the whole time. I never lost my appetite, I never lost my taste. So that was a good thing, that I kept eating and wanting to eat. Although I did, in the 10 days, I lost 22 pounds, which I needed to lose, but I didn't want to lose them that quickly. But I never had like the flu, achy pain stuff. Never had that. It was only the breathing. So I still have that, and they cannot assure me that it will go away. They still don't have enough research. They don't know. They do have people, you know, who at the very beginning, back in February and March, had it, and 7-8 months later, they're still having difficulty breathing. So we're just going to monitor it, see how it goes. I exercise my lungs. I have exercises for that. I speak through Zoom with a therapist. So we'll see how it goes. Right now, I'm breathing fine. I can walk about 40 feet before I get tired and need to sit down and rest.
Do you have any idea how you were exposed?
Absolutely none. Between March 12th and June 28th, I probably saw less than 20 people total. Time, because I ordered all of my groceries and food through Whole Foods, which was very close to my house, and Amazon. So I did see some of those delivery people at the door when I would open the door, but they were masked. All the others were friends. So they did do contact tracing, the San Francisco Health Department, because that's where my main residence is, and they did it here in Palm Springs. I only had one contact in the 14 days prior, and that was a close friend, and they did ask him to go get tested. He went and got tested. He was COVID negative. So At first I worried about that, and then the doctor says, quit worrying about it. You have no idea, it's in the air. And remember, it's in the air. Wear those masks.
Mm-hmm, mm-hmm. So what advice do you have for any of our Covia residents and staff about, how to stay safe, or what to do, what not to do, or is this something that should scare them, or what do you say?
Well, personally, I'm still scared.
Mm-hmm.
Here. I lived through the early 1980s. I came to San Francisco in 1979.
Mm-hmm.
I got transferred with my job there, and it was right at the top of the AIDS crisis. So that was really scary for me. And we all know that that lasted a little while before we figured out that it didn't need to be as scary as we thought, because there were things you could do to make sure that you didn't get it. And I'm sure that's going to happen with this too, but this one's a little different because it's in the air. It's
Mm-hmm.
how do we manage that other than with these masks and washing our hands and social distancing? And so I see so many people that aren't doing that, and
Mm-hmm.
that's very scary for me. And I saw a lot of that in San Francisco. I live on Nob Hill, and especially the younger people, they were still playing basketball and not wearing a mask and running without a mask. And they could probably, hopefully they will get over it, being young and having strong bodies and a good immune system. But there's so many people around them that could get the COVID. I would hope they wouldn't. But like any hospital stay, I've been in the hospital before, I just want to remind people that the patient, me, are the best advocate you can have for your medical care. So, and I learned this in our business. Speak up for yourself. Ask the questions. There are no dumb questions. The doctors will tell you what they can tell you, and so just keep after them. They're busy, especially right now. You could just tell the stress that the medical staff were feeling from what they were going through, taking care of so many people with so many different things. But just, you have to slow them down, I guess you have to say. Well, I have these questions. So every night I would put my questions together. About 9 o'clock, I would think of everything I wanted to ask them. Can I do this? Can I do that? And then I would have my questions ready. It made me feel better too, just getting an answer to the things I had questions about. But I thought about the people from the 1918 flu, how awful. They didn't have Zoom. They didn't have the internet. They didn't have a way to connect to people. And even though I was in that room alone, I spoke with my family every day. We, FaceTime, Zoom, friends, people dropped things off. I got cards, and I was surprised they let flowers come to the room. And all of that made the experience, I had the feeling that people were caring about me, and these people that I knew about. And even when I came home, and still to this day, I don't let anybody in my house, but people will come and drop things off, and I have glass sliding doors. So they'll stand on one side, on the patio side of the door, and I'm inside. And we can talk through the glass doors, and they can leave things, and I can get them once they leave. So we figured out ways, to connect with each other. But ongoing, the doctors tell me, that they just don't know the long-term effect of this disease on the other organs. Maybe my heart might have been affected in some way, or my kidneys, and we just won't know until I get on down the road. See.
Mm-hmm. Well, all right.
Be a good advocate for yourself.
Wonderful. All right. Well, thank you so much for sharing a little bit about your experience. I truly appreciate it. And I'm really glad to see you up and about and doing better.
I'm glad
I hope it just
work.
continues. Oh, yes. Absolutely. Absolutely. All right. Thank you, Jerry.
Thanks, Laura.
Talk to you later.